Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever asked God for a breakthrough, a direction, or an answer, only to wonder if He has heard your cry? I'm here to remind you today, you asked, and God is sending you the sign, but are you ready to see it? Recognizing the signs God sends is one of the most critical aspects of walking in alignment with His purpose for your life. Yet it's also one of the most misunderstood. People often expect signs to be loud, obvious, and unmistakable, like a booming voice from the heavens, a lightning strike, or a miraculous event that leaves no room for doubt. But God's ways are not always dramatic or overt. Often, His signs come in forms so subtle that we risk missing them if we're not attentive and discerning. This is why cultivating spiritual awareness is so vital. To discern a sign from God, you must first develop a posture of openness and humility. If your mind is cluttered with distractions, worries, and preconceived notions about how God should answer, you might overlook the very thing you've been praying for. It's like trying to hear a whisper in the middle of a loud crowd. The whisper is there, but your ability to perceive it is drowned out by noise. In the same way, the signs God sends are often gentle nudges, small shifts, or unexpected encounters that require stillness and focus to recognize. Understanding how God communicates is another critical aspect. Sometimes, His signs come through people, someone offering advice, an unexpected act of kindness, or even a conversation that resonates deeply with something you've been wrestling with in your heart. Other times, the sign could come through circumstances, a door opening or closing, an opportunity presenting itself, or a change in your environment that seems to point you in a new direction. These signs are not random. They are orchestrated by a God who knows you intimately and loves you deeply. However, to recognize them, you must train yourself to see beyond the surface. What may appear as coincidence to the untrained eye could be a divinely arranged moment. God also speaks through His Word. Scripture is a treasure trove of wisdom and guidance, yet it requires intentional engagement. Too often, people pray for a sign without opening the Bible, where God's voice is already written and waiting to be discovered. The Scriptures don't just offer general principles, they can illuminate specific paths for your life when you approach them with a prayerful heart. A verse you've read countless times can suddenly take on new meaning, speaking directly to a situation you're facing. This is not accidental. It's God's way of confirming His will and sending you a sign that aligns with His truth. But even with all these ways God sends signs, there's a deeper challenge. Are you willing to see beyond your expectations? Sometimes we ask God for a sign, but we've already decided what that sign should look like. We want it to fit into our plans, our timing, and our comfort zone. When it doesn't, we might dismiss it, thinking God hasn't answered. But the issue is not that God isn't speaking. It's that we're not truly listening. Discerning a sign requires a willingness to let go of your own agenda and trust that God knows what's best, even if it doesn't align with your preferences. Spiritual discernment is like building a muscle. It grows stronger with use. Begin by practicing mindfulness in your daily life. Pay attention to the small details, the moments that stir something in your spirit, and the patterns that seem to emerge. Sometimes what appears to be ordinary is God's way of weaving the extraordinary into your life. A chance meeting, a persistent thought, or even a closed door can all be signs pointing you in a direction you hadn't considered. But if you're not paying attention, you might walk right past them. Prayer is another essential tool for discernment. When you ask God for a sign, don't just speak, listen. Create space in your prayer time to sit in silence and allow Him to impress His will upon your heart. This quiet listening is where many of His signs become clear. It's not about hearing an audible voice, but about sensing His guidance in your spirit. Trust that God wants to communicate with you, but understand that His methods are often quieter and gentler than we expect. Finally, discerning God's signs requires courage. Once you begin to notice the signs, the real question becomes, will you act on them? Recognizing a sign is only the first step. Responding to it is where faith truly comes alive. Many people see the signs but hesitate to move because it challenges their comfort or requires a leap of faith. But remember, God's signs are always sent with purpose. If you choose to ignore them, you risk missing out on the blessings and opportunities He has prepared for you. In every moment, God is speaking. The question is, are you listening? Open your heart, your mind, and your spirit to His voice. The signs are there. You just need the courage, faith, and discernment to see them for what they truly are. When you ask God for direction, preparation becomes the bridge between the question and the answer. Many people pray for signs or guidance, but fail to consider whether they are ready to receive or act upon what they've asked for. Preparation is not just about waiting. It's about actively aligning yourself with the opportunity you believe is coming. God doesn't withhold signs or answers arbitrarily sometimes. He waits for us to grow into the person who can handle what we are asking for. Think of preparation as a form of faith in action. When you prepare for something, you are demonstrating that you believe it will come to pass. If you're praying for a new job, preparation looks like building your skills, updating your resume, or networking with people in the field. If you're praying for a life partner, preparation might mean working on your own emotional and spiritual health so you can be the partner you aspire to have. Too often, people want the end result without doing the groundwork. But preparation is how you show God that you're serious about receiving what you've prayed for. Consider the story of Noah. God told him to build an ark because a flood was coming. At the time, there was no visible evidence of rain or a flood, but Noah prepared anyway. He built the ark according to God's instructions, trusting that the sign would eventually come. His preparation was an act of faith and obedience. Imagine if Noah had waited for the rain to start before beginning construction. It would have been too late. In the same way, when God gives you a promise or direction, your preparation is what ensures you'll be ready when the sign appears. Preparation also requires discipline. It's easy to get discouraged or distracted when the thing you're hoping for hasn't materialized yet. You might feel tempted to abandon your efforts, thinking, what's the point? But discipline keeps you focused, reminding you that every step you take now is building a foundation for the future. Imagine an athlete training for a marathon. They don't wait until the day of the race to start running. They train for weeks or months in advance. Similarly, you must approach your preparation with the mindset that every small effort matters, even if you can't see the results yet. Another key aspect of preparation is alignment with God's will. Sometimes we prepare in ways that suit our own desires, but fail to seek His guidance. It's not just about being busy, it's about being intentional. Ask yourself, are my actions aligned with the purpose God has for my life? Am I preparing in a way that honors Him and positions me to fulfill His plan? For example, if you're praying for financial breakthrough, preparation might involve learning how to manage money wisely, even before the increase comes. If you're asking for spiritual growth, preparation might mean dedicating more time to prayer, study, and serving others. Aligning your preparation with God will ensure that when the sign comes, you will be ready to step into it without hesitation. Preparation is also a process of becoming. Sometimes what you are praying for requires you to grow into a new version of yourself. God might be calling you to let go of old habits, mindsets, or relationships that no longer serve His purpose for your life. This can be uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Think of a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. The process of change might feel like confinement or struggle, but in that preparation phase, that true transformation happens. Without it, a butterfly would never have the strength to fly. In the same way, your preparation season is molding you into the person who can fully embrace and steward the blessing you asked for. Lastly, preparation is about trust. When you prepare, you are trusting that God will honor His promises. You are trusting that your efforts are not in vain, even if the timeline does match your expectations. Trust allows you to keep going when you feel like giving up. It reminds you that God's timing is perfect and that He is always working, even when you cannot see it. Your preparation is a declaration of that trust. A statement that says, I believe in the promise enough to get ready for it. In summary, preparation is an essential part of the process when you're seeking direction from God. It's not just about waiting passively for a sign. It is about actively positioning yourself to receive and act on what you've asked for. Through preparation, you demonstrate your faith, align yourself with God, His will, and grow into the person He has called you to be. So, as you wait for the sign, don't overlook the importance of preparing, because when the sign comes, and it will, you'll be ready to step into everything God has planned for you. Receiving a sign from God is an extraordinary moment, but it not the end point of your journey. It is the beginning. A sign is a divine message, a signal pointing toward the next step in your life's purpose. But what you do after receiving that sign determines whether it becomes a transformative moment or just another unfulfilled possibility. The truth is, receiving a sign requires a response, and that response is obedience. Obedience activates the sign. It's the bridge between hearing God's voice and walking into the destiny He has prepared for you. Many people pray for signs, but hesitate to act when they receive them. Why? Because obedience often demands something from us. It asks us to move out of our comfort zones, to let go of our fears, or to step into the unknown with faith. When God gives a sign, it rarely comes without a call to action. Consider the story of Noah. God gave him a clear sign and instruction to build an ark. Imagine if Noah had received that sign, acknowledged it, but then decided it was too difficult, too unconventional, or too costly to obey. The sign alone would not have saved him and his family. It was his obedience that turned God's sign into a vessel of salvation. This principle is true for all of us. God's signs are often an invitation to participate in His plan. They are not meant to be passive experiences, but active calls to respond. Obedience means saying yes to God, even when you don't fully understand the reason behind the sign. It means trusting that God's perspective is far greater than your own, that He sees the bigger picture, and that His instructions are for your ultimate good. Sometimes obedience can feel risky. The sign God sends might challenge your current circumstances or push you towards something unfamiliar. You might feel unqualified, unprepared, or unsure about what lies ahead. But obedience isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting the one who does. It's about saying, God, I may not see the full picture, but I trust you enough to take the first step. Obedience in the face of uncertainty is a powerful act of faith. And it is often in that step of faith that God begins to reveal the next piece of the puzzle. Obedience also requires a heart of humility. It's easy to want things our way, to ask God for a sign, and then attempt to fit it into our plan. But obedience means surrendering our will to God. His will. It means acknowledging that His plans are higher, His wisdom is greater, and His timing is perfect. This surrender is not always easy, but it is essential. When you obey, you are not just responding to the sign. You are aligning yourself with God as purpose and allowing Him to work through you. It is also important to recognize that obedience often comes with challenges. There may be obstacles, opposition, or moments of doubt along the way. But these challenges are not meant to deter you. They are opportunities to deepen your faith and reliance on God. Remember, obedience is not about perfection. It is about perseverance. It's about continuing to say yes to God, even when the journey is difficult. Each act of obedience strengthens your relationship with Him and builds your character, preparing you for the blessings and responsibilities that lie ahead. Finally, obedience is not just about your personal journey. It has a ripple effect on those around you. When you respond to God, as signs with obedience, you become a vessel of His work in the world. Your obedience can inspire, encourage, and impact others in ways you may not even realize. Think of the countless lives that have been changed because someone chose to obey God. It's called. Your willingness to act on the sign you've received can be the catalyst for transformation, not just in your own life, but in the lives of others. So when you receive a sign from God, don't just stop at recognizing it. Take the next step. Respond with obedience, even if it requires courage, sacrifice, or faith in the unseen. Trust that God is leading you towards something greater than you can imagine, and know that your obedience is the key that unlocks the full potential of His plan. Faith, at its core, is not a passive belief, but an active force that compels us to move. When we ask God for signs and direction, He doesn't just send them for us to observe and marvel at, He sends them to guide us into action. However, many people falter at this critical juncture. They receive a sign, but instead of stepping forward in faith, they remain stationary, waiting for more clarity, more assurances, or perfect conditions. Yet, the very nature of faith is that it requires movement before all the pieces come together. When you look at the great stories of faith throughout history, you'll notice a common thread. Every individual who experienced God's guidance or miraculous provision had to take a step of faith. They didn't wait for all the details to be revealed before they acted. Think about Noah, who built an ark in obedience to God's instructions long before a drop of rain fell. He didn't wait to see the storm clouds gather. He trusted the sign and moved forward. Or Abraham, who left his home, his comfort zone, and everything familiar, because God gave him a promise of a land he hadn't seen. Their faith was not just in the words they heard, but in the actions they took. Faith that moves is faith that grows. It's in the act of stepping out, even when the path isn't fully clear, that we see God's power unfold. God often sends signs as a starting point, not a conclusion. The sign is an invitation to trust Him and take the first step, even if you don't yet see the full picture. When you act on that sign, you demonstrate your trust in His plan, and He meets you in your obedience. It's like standing in front of a door with a key in hand. The door won't open until you insert the key and turn it. The sign is the key, and your action is what unlocks the door. Yet, stepping out in faith requires courage, especially when the sign challenges our comfort zones or leads us into unfamiliar territory. It's easy to doubt, to question if the sign is truly from God, or to hesitate because we fear failure. But here, as the truth, God does descend signs to lead you astray or abandon you mid-journey. If He has given you a sign, it means He has already prepared the way for you. Your role is not to figure out every detail, but to trust Him enough to take the next step. Faith that requires no risk is not faith at all. Movement also activates provision. Many times, people wait for everything to fall into place before they act. But often, God as provision is released in the process of moving forward. Think about the Israelites crossing the Jordan River. The waters did part until the priest stepped into the river. It was their act of faith that activated the miracle. Similarly, God may be waiting for you to take a step before He reveals the next part of His plan. Your willingness to move forward, even when the path ahead seems uncertain, demonstrates your trust in Him and positions you to experience His provision. It's important to remember that faith-driven movement does mean recklessness or acting without wisdom. It means stepping out with a heart aligned to God, as will, trusting that He will guide and correct you as you go. Sometimes the first step is small, a phone call, a decision to forgive, a willingness to let go of something holding you back. Other times it may feel monumental, leaving a job, starting a new venture, or moving to a new place. Regardless of the size of the step, what matters is your willingness to move in response to the sign. Faith that moves also inspires others. When people see you stepping out in courage and trusting God as guidance, it stirs their own faith. Your obedience can become a sign for someone else, pointing them toward God's faithfulness. Think about how one person's testimony of stepping out in faith often encourages others to believe that God can do the same in their lives. Your act of faith has a ripple effect that goes beyond what you can see. Ultimately, movement in faith is not about achieving a particular outcome. It's about trusting the one who holds the outcome. Even if the path is difficult or the results aren't immediate, every step taken in faith draws you closer to God's purpose for your life. It's in the journey, not just the destination, that your relationship with Him deepens and your character is shaped. So when you receive a sign, don't stand still. Move forward, trusting that with each step, God is guiding you, providing for you, and aligning your path with His perfect plan. God's timing often feels like a mystery to us, yet it is always intentional and perfect. When we ask for signs, it's easy to expect immediate clarity or a direct response that aligns with our personal expectations. However, what we often forget is that the process of receiving and understanding a sign is just as important as the sign itself. Trusting the process is not only about waiting, it's about cultivating faith, patience, and a deeper relationship with the one who is orchestrating everything for your good. Imagine for a moment that you're planting a seed. You prepare the soil, place the seed in the ground, and water it. But after a day, nothing happens. After a week, still nothing. Does that mean the seed isn't growing? No. Beneath the surface, roots are forming, anchoring the plant, and drawing in nutrients. This unseen work is crucial for the eventual sprouting and flourishing of the plant. The same principle applies to the signs we seek from God. Just because you don't see the answer immediately doesn't mean that nothing is happening. Trusting the process means believing that God is working beneath the surface, preparing you and your circumstances for the right moment. The delay we often perceive is not a sign of absence or neglect. It's an act of love. God's process includes timing that ensures we are ready to receive, handle, and steward what He has prepared for us. If we are given something prematurely, we might squander it, misunderstand it, or be overwhelmed by it. Think about a child asking for a car. The parent may say no, not because they don't want the child to have it, but because the child isn't yet ready to drive. Similarly, God's not yet is not a no. It's a wait until you're ready. This requires us to shift our perspective from frustration to trust, recognizing that His timing is always for our benefit. Another aspect of trusting the process is letting go of our preconceived ideas of what the sign should look like. Sometimes we miss God's guidance because we are so focused on expecting a grand, undeniable moment. But God often speaks in subtle ways. The sign you've been asking for might come through a conversation, an opportunity, or even a closed door. It's vital to keep your heart and mind open, ready to discern His voice in unexpected places. Trusting the process means acknowledging that God's ways are higher than ours, and His methods often exceed our understanding. In the Bible, we see countless examples of people who had to trust the process even when it didn't make sense. Consider Joseph, who had dreams of leadership and greatness, but found himself sold into slavery and later imprisoned. From a human perspective, his circumstances seemed to contradict the vision God had given him. Yet, through every twist and turn, God was working behind the scenes, aligning events to position Joseph for His ultimate purpose as a leader in Egypt. Imagine if Joseph had given up in the pit or the prison, assuming that God had forgotten him. But he trusted the process, and in time, God's plan was revealed in its fullness. Trusting the process also means embracing the discomfort that comes with growth. Growth is rarely easy. It challenges you, stretches you, and requires you to step out of your comfort zone. But it is in these moments of discomfort that you are being prepared for the next level. The sign you're waiting for might come with a challenge that requires you to change your mindset, let go of something, or take a step of faith into the unknown. This is not God making it harder for you. It's Him preparing you to handle what's ahead. Trust that every step, even the hard ones, is part of his plan to mold you into the person he created you to be. Finally, trusting the process requires a deep relationship with God. The more you trust his character, the easier it is to trust his timing and methods. When you spend time in prayer, studying his word and seeking his presence, you begin to recognize his faithfulness in every season. Even when the path is unclear, his peace will sustain you, reminding you that he is in control. Trust is not built overnight. It grows through consistent surrender and reliance on him. So, as you wait for the sign you've asked for, remember that the process is just as important as the destination. It's shaping you, preparing you, and aligning everything for the perfect moment. Trust that God's plan is worth the wait, even when you can't see the full picture. Hold on to faith, embrace patience, and lean into his presence, knowing that his timing is always right and his process is always for your good.